My name is Vera Blackwood. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life, I thought being tired was just the price of being responsible. I'm sitting alone at my kitchen table as I say this. It's early afternoon, but the light already feels thin, like it's thinking about leaving. That happens more often now. With the light. With people. I don't know exactly why I'm finally saying this out loud. Maybe because there aren't that many chances left to say things honestly. Maybe because pretending takes more energy than I have now. What I finally understand is this: I wasn't tired because life was hard. I was tired because I wasn't really living in it. For years, everything looked fine from the outside. Steady job. Marriage that lasted a respectable amount of time. A house that stayed standing. Bills paid on time. No scandals. No disasters anyone could point to. And yet, I was always tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. Not the kind you complain about and laugh off. It was deeper than that. It sat behind my eyes. In my chest. Like I was carrying something invisible that got heavier every year. At 68, you start counting things differently. Not birthdays. Not years. You count who's left. You count mornings that don't hurt too badly. You count how often the phone rings. I don't have many illusions left. That's a strange kind of freedom. So I'll start here, in the present, because that's where clarity finally lives. The house is quiet now in a way it never used to be. I used to crave quiet. Thought it meant peace. It doesn't always. Sometimes it just means no one is coming back. I look at my hands more than I used to. They're thinner. The skin looks borrowed. These hands did a lot of things. Made meals. Signed papers. Folded laundry late at night while listening to the news because silence felt too loud. They also didn't do some things. They didn't reach out when they should have. They didn't hold on long enough. Back then, I didn't know that choosing later so often would slowly turn into never. When I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I thought tiredness meant I was doing something right. I wore it like proof. Proof I was useful. Proof I was needed. I worked as an administrative coordinator for a mid-sized insurance firm. Nothing glamorous. A beige building with bad coffee and a parking lot that flooded every spring. I was good at it. Reliable. The kind of person people leaned on without asking if I could hold the weight. I didn't mind that, at first. It felt good to be depended on. I met my husband, Robert, when I was 26. He was quiet. Thoughtful. Had a way of listening that made you feel finished, like you didn't have to keep explaining yourself. We married because it made sense. That sounds colder than it felt. At the time, it felt warm and solid, like stepping onto ground that wouldn't give way. We talked about traveling someday, about learning Italian, about a small place near the coast when we retired. Those conversations were always future-shaped, someday shaped. We didn't think that was a problem. In our 30s, life filled up quickly. Work expanded. Responsibilities multiplied. Parents aged. There was always something that needed handling. Something urgent enough to push everything else aside. I remember coming home exhausted and collapsing onto the couch, shoes still on, telling myself I'd rest for 10 minutes. Just 10. Then I'd get up and talk. Ask how his day was. Share mine. Most nights, I fell asleep instead. Robert would turn the television down so I could rest. He was kind like that. Quietly accommodating. I didn't realize then that silence can also be a kind of distance. We didn't fight much. People think that's a sign of a good marriage. Sometimes it just means two people are very good at avoiding discomfort. I was always planning the next week, the next project, the next phase. I lived slightly ahead of myself, convinced that the real-life part would start once things settled. They never did. In my 40s, the tiredness got worse. Doctors said everything looked normal. Blood work fine. Blood pressure manageable. Probably stress, they said, kindly, like it was nothing worth examining further. I accepted that answer because it let me keep going without changing anything. I missed small things first. Lunches with friends that got rescheduled and then forgotten. Phone calls returned days late. Birthdays are acknowledged with cards instead of presents. I told myself everyone was busy. That this was adulthood. I didn't notice how rarely anyone knocked on our door anymore. How invitations slowed, then stopped. How I stopped being asked and started being remembered vaguely. At work, I was praised for my consistency, for never taking time off, for being the one who could always handle more. At home, Robert started gardening. I didn't think much of it at first. Just something to occupy him. Something quiet. But gardens take time. They require patience. Attention. He found something there I hadn't realized he was missing. I'd come home, and he'd be outside, hands in the dirt, looking up like he was surprised to see me. Not unhappy. Just distant. How was your day? I'd ask. Fine, he'd say. We use that word a lot. Fine. Fine was the word that slowly drained the color out of our lives. In my 50s, my mother got sick. It wasn't sudden. It was the long kind of sickness that stretches time and tests everyone's patience. I took on more. visits, appointments, paperwork. I was tired all the time then. Bone tired. The kind where you wake up already exhausted. I remember sitting in her hospital room one afternoon, watching her sleep, thinking, I don't remember the last time I felt rested. Not physically. In myself. She died quietly. People said it was peaceful. I suppose it was, in the way endings sometimes are when there's no strength left to fight them. After the funeral, people drifted back to their lives. I went back to work. Back to routines. Back to being tired. Robert and I talked even less after that. Grief has a way of isolating you, even from the person closest to you. I assumed we would find our way back. That this was just a season. I assumed there would be more time. The tiredness by then felt permanent. Like a low hum. I didn't complain much. I didn't want to be the kind of person who always talks about how exhausted they are. Instead, I withdrew. I conserved energy. I stopped doing things that required emotional effort. I didn't realize that connection also gives energy. That cutting it off doesn't actually save you anything. The turning point didn't come with drama. No shouting. No betrayal. Just a quiet conversation on a Tuesday night. Robert sat across from me at the table where I'm sitting now. He looked older than I expected. Or maybe I was finally seeing him clearly. I don't think we're unhappy, he said slowly. But I don't think we're really here anymore either. I didn't argue. That should have scared me. The fact that I didn't have anything to say. He moved out 3 months later. Found a small apartment near the community garden he volunteered at. We were civil. Kind, even. People praised us for how maturely we handled it. What they didn't see was how empty the house felt after. How the quiet changed shape. I thought the tiredness would ease once the strain was gone. Once life simplified. It didn't. If anything, it became clearer. Sharper. Like pain when the adrenaline wears off. I retired at 63. The office threw me a small party. Cake from the grocery store. A card signed by people who had already started forgetting me. I went home that day and sat on the couch and waited to feel something. Relief. Joy. Freedom. Mostly, I felt tired. That's when it finally started to dawn on me that this tiredness wasn't about work. Or age. Or stress. It was about years of postponing myself. Of telling myself I'd rest later. Love later. Speak later. Live later. Later never arrived. The realization didn't hit all at once. It came in pieces. in moments that shouldn't have mattered but did. Standing in the grocery store, unable to remember the last time someone asked me how I was and waited for the answer. Hearing about a former friend's death through a third party and realizing I hadn't spoken to her in 15 years. Looking at old photographs and feeling like I was watching someone else's life. Someone busy. Someone capable. Someone absent. There are things that can't be fixed now. Conversations that won't happen. Apologies that have no recipient. Versions of myself that only existed in intention. I don't beat myself up about it. Not anymore. I understand now that I wasn't careless. I was cautious. Dutiful. Afraid of rocking things that seemed stable. I thought stability was the goal. No one told me that stability without presence is just stagnation. I don't have many regrets about what I did. I regret what I delayed. Love delayed. Joy delayed. Rest delayed. I thought tiredness was proof I was earning my place. I didn't know it was a warning. If you're listening to this and you're younger than me, I don't have instructions for you. I don't know your life. I won't pretend I do. I only know this: if you feel tired even when things are fine, pay attention. Not with panic. With honesty. Ask yourself what you keep pushing aside because it doesn't feel urgent enough. Ask yourself who you assume will still be there later. Some things don't announce their expiration dates. I'm not unhappy now. That surprises people when I say it. I have small pleasures. Morning light. Warm tea. A neighbor who waves. But I live with the quiet knowledge that I misunderstood my own exhaustion for far too long. There isn't much time left for big changes. And that's all right. I've made peace with that. What I have left is awareness. And a few honest words. If this meant something to you, you don't have to do anything with it. Just hold it gently. Like a thought worth keeping. As for me, I'll finish my tea. Watch the light fade. And rest, finally, without guilt. That's all I wanted to say.